Welcome back to another episode of What Should I Get Pierced? My name is Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional body piercer and I have been since 1994. Now on the show, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at 6 people. We're looking at their faces and their ears, and I'm going to tell you what would work well for them and ultimately what I think would look best. The first person we're looking at today is Marie. Now, Marie did mention that she plays clarinet and oboe and would like some oral piercings, especially lip piercings, but she's not sure if she's going to be able to get those piercings. And I would have to agree with you. In my experience, oral piercings do cause a lot of problems with instruments like this, so you need to be careful. Real quick story for you. Back when I was in college and first started to do the piercings, my roommate Kurt was testing out on oboe the next day and said he was super good at it and his new tongue piercing would not affect it at all. So we did the piercing and he failed that test. So in my experience, it does affect your ability to play, so you might need to stay away from that. If you did want oral piercings, maybe a tongue web or a smiley might be an option for you. Now, as far as other piercings, maybe we could do some eyebrow piercings, but honestly, the skin looks kind of flat in that area, and I'm not sure if we would be able to get away with it. If the skin is loose enough, we might be able to do the eyebrow piercing. Otherwise, there's always the possibility if you want to do a nostril piercing, you do the asymmetrical look, or my personal favorite, which is the trifecta, and that's nostril piercing on both sides. So, as far as my ultimate pick, honestly, I would say probably a tongue web. Now, let's take a look at her ear. Wow, fully decorated already. Now, she did mention she thinks she can still fit a couple in there, but we might need to rearrange or do a couple things here. Now, as far as like filling this out, what I would do, honestly, is you might need to downsize your barbell a little bit, put a shorter bar on there, and that will make things look a little bit more nice and tidy. And then the other thing I'm going to suggest is you see how we got these vertical helix piercings up here? Maybe putting some sort of a full bead opal on the top instead of the discs, just decorate it. And then you can turn this into like a big curved barbell where it looks like there's a little U coming out. So it's one piece of jewelry. And if you wanted to, that leaves this little bar where you could hang dangles or some sort of chain. That's a lot of fun options there. Now, on the other ear, to kind of balance things out, you do have this industrial, which is awesome. What I would do is I would do a vertical helix, just like so, just to kind of balance it out with the other side. So you have those vertical ones, you got that on there, and that works with industrial, and kind of even lines up with that flat piercing. So that is fun. Now, the other thing I would suggest possibly doing would be a second helix here, where you could add one just below that opal, and the same thing with this flat here. If you wanted to add maybe a second piercing right in there, just to kind of, it's close, so it still balances. It's not totally symmetrical, but the balance, I think, is what we're looking at here. So now, as far as my ultimate picks here, what I would do is that custom curved bar at the top, the vertical helix piercing, and the anti-helix, and that extra helix piercing. There's plenty of room yet. And up next we have Katarina from Portugal. So let's take a look at her face. Now when I look at her face, first thing I'm noticing is her upper lip. I can totally see a gestural piercing. That's the first thing that pops into my head. If I didn't like the gestural, you could always do the lower vertical labret as well. Now another option would be a Medusa piercing if you wanted to keep it away from the mouth. So there's a bunch of fun oral piercings that we could do. Now I could also see some dahlia piercings on her. I could also see some high nostril piercings on her, as well as regular nostrils. Regular nostrils as well as the high nostrils. I'm obviously a fan. And last suggestion I'm going to say is the bridge piercing. It looks like she has the right bridge for this one, so that would be a really, really fun option. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I'm going to say a gestural and the high nostrils. Now, let's take a look at her ear. You can see right away there is a conch piercing in there, and that conch piercing looks lonely, so let's add a couple more. I could totally see an upper and a lower conch, creating a triple conch, not with a cluster, but with 3 individual piercings. That's a fun thing to do. Now another cool thing we could do here is you can see how the ear kind of peaks up a little bit up towards the top. We can use that to our advantage to maybe doing an orbital, because if you did a ring in the top where you're doing the piercing from here to here, you're actually kind of following the curvature of the top of the ear, and that actually fits the ring in there really, really well. Another fun option might be the tragus. Looks like there's plenty of tissue to pierce there. And it looks like there is a single piercing in there. Get some jewelry in there and maybe start stretching. And then if you wanted to, you could always add a couple more earlobe piercings. There's a lot of fun options here. As far as my ultimate pick, I'm going to say the triple conch and the orbital. And up next, we have Joel. And Joel was just curious what would look best on him. As far as my opinion, I can see a couple different things here. We have the nostril piercing, so we can work with that nostril piercing. Either maybe an eyebrow piercing on the other side to kind of balance it out, or possibly a lip piercing on the other side of the nostril as well, just to kind of keep that balance thing going for him. Now, another possibility as far as balance is just the other side of the nostril, having the double nostril piercing. It looks like you are a perfect candidate for the bridge piercing too. It looks like there's enough tissue to pierce there, as long as the bone's not all the way to the front. I could also see some inner eyebrow piercings. Inner eyebrows like all the way up there, just like so. Mine are more towards the middle. This is even further in. That might be kind of a fun thing to do. And now, my ultimate picks, I'm going to say a lip piercing and the eyebrow piercing. All right, let's move on to his ear. So, looking at his ear, a naked ear, time to decorate. You can see immediately a nice pronounced tragus. Tragus piercing would work really well. You could get a rook piercing in there. The forward helix, I could see a double forward helix in there. I could also see a snug piercing. Not everyone has the anatomy for the snug. It looks like this is pronounced enough and not too crazy thick. The thicker they are, the rougher they are to heal. So this would be a fun piercing. And definitely an earlobe piercing. Earlobe piercings are super fun with all the jewelry options. Now, as far as my ultimate pick here, I'm going to say the tragus piercing and the snug. And up next, we have Amy. So let's take a look at her face. Now, she did mention when she wrote in, she's looking for something new. She loves piercings, and that she's not driving while taking this picture. Thank you for that. Now, first thing I'm looking at is her amazing smile. With an amazing smile like this, I can totally see a Medusa, a possible Jestrum, or even a normal labret piercing. All could be super, super cute. I could also see her getting away with some angel bites, and also a septum piercing, and once it's nice and tight, snug ring on there. All super, super fun options. I could also see maybe a horizontal eyebrow piercing across the top of her eyebrow, and even a simple nostril piercing just on the side like that. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I am going to say a Medusa and a nostril. Let's take a look at her ear. Now, looking at her ear, she does have pretty symmetrical ears. She has the doff on the other side just like this, and the angles are matched amazing. So props to the piercer who did that. Now, as far as other options here, if you're keeping things symmetrical, I could see a conch piercing in there. I could also see a double anti-helix. Kind of see how it's more of a flat, but it is kind of rounded up, so it is the anti-helix area. I could also see some helix piercings going down the ear, as well as another earlobe piercing. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I'm going to say a conch and a second lobe. So up next we have Josh. Now Josh mentioned he's seen in some of the other videos that some people have glasses and then non-glasses. He's wondering how facial hair would affect this as well. Now generally facial hair doesn't affect it too much, but one thing I will say is if you end up growing your mustache out, Medusas look awesome with a mustache. I don't know, you can always do like a crown, something that stands out a little bit more, but those have always been a really, really fun look for people who have facial hair. And the same thing with labret. Now the thing is you can't really shave around that area, but it can be a cool look. Now as far as other piercings go, I would say a septum piercing would also work well because it lays in front of the facial hair. And then speaking of hair, go through an eyebrow piercing. Eyebrow piercing's right next to it, so again, it just shows how piercings work really nice next to a hairline. Now, as far as other options here, I'm going to say high nostrils would look really, really cool. And also, dolphin bites, just on the outskirts of where the top of your hair comes out. So there are a couple fun options, but my ultimate picks is going to be the Medusa. Now let's take a look at his ear. Now, as we look at his ear, you can see that there is a single earlobe piercing and nothing else. Now, with shadows like this that you can see, that means there's enough curves to do a lot of fun piercings. For example, you could do something like a vertical industrial where it would start at the top up here and run all the way down through the conch, and kind of coming out, not through the earlobe, but on behind the earlobe through the conch. And then we could also do a doth piercing. We could also do a rook. The rook looks nice and thin, so fairly easy to heal. Now, as we look at the tragus, there's a little bit sticking out, but not very much. I would stay away from that, as well as the anti-tragus. As far as conch, yeah, heal that up and wear the ring around once everything's healed up. Last option, I would say, would be add some more earlobe piercings. Definitely room for more there. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, vertical industrial and a second lobe. If you've enjoyed my videos so far, make sure you hit that like and of course, hit the subscribe to see all future videos. Now, our last person we're looking at today is going to be Valeria, so let's take a look at her face. Now, Valeria mentioned that she was interested in possibly 1 or 2 more piercings. She already has that septum piercing, and that's all I see right here. Now, possibilities here is you could also add a Medusa piercing slightly below that septum piercing. We could also add an Ashley piercing. I think an Ashley piercing forward-facing gem would be absolutely stunning. And then we could also do vertical labret. She has enough of a pouty lip where the vertical labret would sit nice and flush. And as far as other options go, I could see angel bites. Angel bites would be absolutely beautiful on her. As far as other nostril piercings, high nostril piercings would also work really, really well. So there are a few options here. As far as my ultimate pick, I'm totally going to say an Ashley would be stunning. So now, let's take a look at her ear. Now you can see she already has the stretched earlobe piercing, and there's plenty of room to stretch some more, so keep on stretching. Now there's also plenty of room for other earlobe piercings, and if you did heal up a second earlobe piercing, you can always wear the ring going through the inner one, the one that's already stretched out. Kind of a fun little look. Now, as far as other options, you can see that the doth is very well pronounced and would support a ring very, very nicely. You can see how happy that looks right there. And then we could also do some triple forward helixes. There looks like plenty of room for that, as well as room for the helixes all the way down. Now, as you can see in this area right in here, the area does start getting a little thinner, so you can't put too big of gems in there. And as far as conch goes, double conch. And last option I would say would be the tragus. Enough pronounced where you could add a single one there, or even the double if you planned ahead. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I am going to say the double tragus and a double helix. So what did you think? Did you like my choices today? Let me know in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like, hit the subscribe, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. See you all in the next video.